Hello, this is Kevin Trainer, and I'd like to welcome you to the second demo on creating high quality print documents with XSLT and XSL-FO. In the last of the units, the demo was to create a report, a printed report of the list of ACES student chapters. And we'd lengthen the list from the list we had previously used so that we could get some page breaks. And in this demo, we are just going to add on a footer line that shows the table and the number of the page. And that might seem like it's not too ambitious. But as I was putting together the demo and trying to judge just how big this should be, I convinced myself that this was just the right size for our next step with XSL-FO, and that I'm going to leave further features of XSL-FO for your delightful self-investigation. Because I say delightful because even though it can be challenging, it can be a lot of fun, and it's certainly how I learned it. And I think that you're already way ahead of where I was at this point in my XML career, and you're well positioned for self-direction at this point. And I didn't want to overdo this one. Okay, so that's where we're headed, and that's why. Let's just take a look here at what we have on our virtual machine. Okay, and in our documents, we have this here. XSL-FO2 is the practice one that I've already done. I already have one in the oven. This is typically done like a cooking show, right? So I'm just going to reproduce it. All right. So here's how I begin. I take the demo that we did last, ACES Student Chapter Demo XSL-FO, and I'm just going to copy it. Sorry, let's go here and say that we want to copy it, and I'm going to paste it. And instead of allowing that name copy to remain, I'm just going to put an _2. Okay? And I've got cords all over my desk here. I apologize for the clatter. So instead of copy, it's going to be 2. Okay, that looks good. And now I'm going to open up this. And I'm going to open the project. And here's our project loading up. And we have all the documents. And just to prove to you that we are where we were at the end of the last of the demos, I'm going to open up the XML document. And I'm going to open up the XSLT document. And I'm going to run the transformation from the XML document. And we're going to see that we get a well-formatted page with keep it together on the paragraphs of each ACES student chapter entry. and good margins, all that kind of stuff. The margins are a little big. I'm going to make them a little smaller on our next version. Okay, and but the typical published look footer that we would be expecting that would include usually the title of the work on one side and the number of the page on the other isn't here yet. Okay, so that's what we're going to add. All right, let's do that. I'm going to close off this so we get to see more of our code. And we're not so concerned about the XML content document. We're more concerned about the more concerned about the XSL and the XSL-FO. All right, so let's go and let's change the layout information. Okay, so it's right up here in the rule that really drives the whole thing, right? This is the rule that matches the root of the document tree, the slash. And right up top we have FO root, that's the root of the FO document, and then we have FO layout master set. And so far we have a very simple page. We have FO simple page master that we're calling my page, and has a single region inside of it called region body. And we're using a margin of 1 inch that's kind of big. Okay. Now we're going to change things around a bit. Okay? First of all, we're going to take the margin out of the body part. We're going to put it into the page. What would that look like? Well, it's not hard to do. Okay, so we're just going to go up and put it into the page master. So it's called my page. Let's get us a couple extra lines there. And let's put in some parameters. First of all, let's be specific about the width and the height of the page. Okay? So the printable portion is going to be 7.5 inches wide and 10 inches high. Okay? So we're going to say page width equals 7.5 in. And then we're going to say page height equals 10 in. And the reason I'm saying this is I'm going to put 1/2 inch worth of margin on each side. So in one aspect or the other, the 1/2 inches are going to add up to 1 inch total. We've cut the margins in half. So width-wise, we have 1/2 inch of margin, 7.5 inches of type, 1/2 inch of margin, and a corresponding thing on the height. Okay. All right. And so now we have to say what the margins are. Okay. And the margins are actually added to the width and the height to get the total size of the page. So we just can do this margin top equals 0.5 in. And we're going to do the same for all the other ones. Margin bottom equals 0.5 in. Now, sorry, I forgot to put that into quotes. You could just use a shortcut and say you wanted to make the margin 0.5 in. But the problem is you'll eventually, to the extent this is a production document, you're going to want to tweak this. and you're probably going to want to tweak the bottom a little bit. Okay. And so you're probably going to want all four specifically measured here. Okay. So I'm kind of looking ahead to that. I'm not going to tweak it, but you'll probably want to do it on yours when you do your assignment. Okay. So that's why I don't use the just margin equals 0.5 inches. And give us a margin right equal 0.5 inches. Okay, so what we've done is we've done a more specific version of the page master. And the UFO origin and body is, for right now, it's just filling up what is inside the type area on the simple page master. So this should work. Should give us a little bit more area for the type. So let's go back to the XML document, transform, and something didn't work. So I'm going to go down here and look at the message. Attribute margin bottom. Show message will work. So attribute margin bottom. So and margin right. So I've got two typos. Okay, so let's find them. Margin bottom and margin right are misspelled. I hope that never happens to you, but if it does, that's how you find it. Okay, and you can see that the margins are a little less generous, a little more room for our type, which I'm liking. All right. And depending upon the page, we've got more or less room at the bottom, depending upon how our little paragraphs worked out. Okay, so now we've done the simplest part. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is create a footer, and there's a couple of working parts to the footer. And I wish there weren't so many parts to it, but this is a very capable tool, and so it has a lot of moving parts. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define another region in our page. We have the region body, and that's where the body of the text goes. And we're going to define something called a region after. You can define a region before, which is where you would put a header. And you can define a region after, which you would call, which would be a footer, okay? And we're just going to do one of the two, but you can do both on the same page. So we're just going to define an FO region after, okay? And we're going to give it an extent. So what's an extent? Well, it's how big it is. Okay, and in this case, it's how much of the height of the page it's going to take up. And where is it going to come from? Well, it's going to be stolen from the total size of the page. So if we say there are if we say there are 10 vertical inches, and we're stealing 0.2 for the region after, then the rest of the type only gets 9.8 inches. Okay, so that's where it comes from. It comes from the printable area on the page. Okay, so for instance, how do we know how many vertical inches we have for the body? Well, we take the vertical inches for the page and we subtract the extent of the region after. What if we had a region before? Well, we would subtract that too. Okay, so they come out of the total and the region body gets what's left over. Okay, that's cool. And we've got to give this a name. Okay, so we're going to call this region name equals, and we're going to call this XSL region footer. Whoop. Okay, so now we have the place for the footer, and let's just test again. Okay, now we've taken up some space, so we'll probably see that we're not using quite so much of the vertical space on the bottom. That might change the layout of the report a bit, but everything else should work just fine. What we've done is to reserve some space. So let's look. The first one worked the same. Second one worked the same. It didn't really change the way things laid out because 2/10 of an inch is not a whole lot of room, but it'll be enough room to put our footer in. Okay, so we haven't changed things much. Now, what are we going to do? Well, what we need to do next is we need to make sure that we're going to generate the footer at the right time. Now, when do we start processing content? Well, we start processing content when we get down to this FO page sequence, master reference equals my page, and the content starts to arrive in this FO flow. So we want to make sure that by the time that we get there, that we have set up the footer. Okay, so what we could do here is we could, for instance, put the code that we need right here, right before FO flow. Okay, but it's going to get kind of busy, so we're going to use a trick that we haven't learned yet. If we just want to take some code and we want to put it in a place where we can give it a name and we can simply call it like a subroutine if you're a procedural programmer. Well, what we can do is we can put it in a template rule, but not one that has a match equal, but one that just has a name. So in addition to having template rules that have a match equal, we've had all along, though we haven't been using them, templates that are named, okay? And we can just simply call them. And how do we do it? Well, we do it with an XSL call template. Name equal, and we're going to call this generate footer, which is a name kind of like we would give to a subroutine that we were going to call if this were a procedural program. Now, you'll notice that we don't have a generate footer, so we get an error message because we're trying to call a template that's not there. Okay, so let's go down and find where we're going to put this. And the first thing that I discovered when I was doing the practice one is that all that original code that I had hidden down here in a comment for that was for the HTML version of this, I never got rid of. So, gee, that was messy of me. So I'm just going to get rid of that stuff that was kind of cheater code for the last demo. Get rid of all the cheater code. That's a whole template. So now here we're back to just the real code. And we want to insert an XSL template. Okay, and we're not going to say match. We're going to say name. Name equal. And interestingly, it gives us the choice of the only name that we're looking for, generate footer. Wow, that's great. And we are going to put our footer information in here. Okay? All right. Now, what goes inside of a footer? Well, a really strange animal for us so far. Okay? You must admit that the content that we've been putting into the flow, right? The content that we've been dumping into the document to be flowed over the layout has been highly variable. It's coming from the input document, and it's just flowing out of the input document through our XSLT and then into the output document. Okay, and it's being flowed onto the page by XSL-FO. Okay, so that's highly variable content. Well, this footer that we're going to have, even though it's going to have one thing that changes on every page, the page number, it is going to have a bunch of stuff that stays the same on each page. And that is the name of the document, right? And we could have a couple of things. A lot of footers, you have the name of the overall document, you have the name of the chapter, and maybe you have the page. So you have a few static things that are not going to change on every page. They're going to change a lot slower than every page. Okay. And you have the page number, which, yeah, it's going to change on every page. And it's hard to really call that static. But we have an element here called FO static content. And that is content that's not changing as fast as the rest of the text that we're flowing into the document. Okay? FO static content. And it has a flow name. Okay? And we're going to call it XSL region. Oh, sorry. It has a hyphen. XSL region footer. Okay? And that's all we need. That's going to be put in our footer area. Because when we define the page, if you look up where we define the page, all right, let's go back and find that. We define the page. Okay, this is how we know where to put it. Because we give the region name XSL region footer, so it's going to stick it in the region after, which is where we want our footer. That's where the content's going to go. So that's how that connection happens. All right? So let's go back down to our generate footer code. Okay? So one of the things we'd like to do is to control the typography for everything that's in the footer. And we control typography with an FO block. Okay? So let's say that everything that's in the footer is going to be in this FO block. Okay? So get rid of the extra lines here. And what do we want to say about the type? Well, let's say font equals, and let's use the shorthand, 9-point Helvetica. And if you're better than me at the shorthand, you can probably find the place to put italic in there. I was struggling with that. It's very early in the morning here in Glenview, Illinois. I was working on this at about 4 a.m. you're going to have to bear with me. I'm just going to add on font style equals italic. And those of you who are smarter than me this morning could probably say, you know what? There's a way to get that italic into that font equals shorthand expression, Kevin. And if you were fully awake, you would get it taken care of. And I would say, good for you. Get it in there and don't have to do it in two attributes like I did this morning because it's very early. Okay, now in the HTML world, we have really gotten away from laying out pages with tables. Okay, that was considered the old way to do layout pre-cascading style sheets. And that's not true for XSL-FO. So if you want to position things on a page, you just resort to using tables. And I regret the fact that this is going to be our experience for tables, but we're just going to create an FO table, and we're just not going to show the borders on it. Okay, so we're going to say FO table. Okay, and what's inside of an FO table? Well, one of the things is an FO table body, but like HTML tables, before that, we can define some of the properties of our columns. So we have an FO column. Sorry, FO table column. Oh, don't you like that? FO table column. And we can say column width. And I'm just going to equals 50%. Now, a lot of times with printed documents like this, you don't use percentages because you can figure out the width. Okay, we know how many inches this is. I think it is 8. So we could just say 4 inches. Okay, that would do the same thing. But I'm kind of lazy, and maybe I'm going to change the margins on this at some point. So I think it's going to make a lot of sense to use percentages here. Because if I change the margins, then the 50% would still work. And I'm just going to copy this because there are 2 columns, and we want them both to take 50%. Okay, so what's going to go inside the body? Well, rows and cells. Okay, this is very much like HTML tables. So we can come down here and say, okay, we want an FO table row. This is going to be a single row table. Okay, and then we're going to have an FO table cell. And it's going to be a 2-cell table. It's 2-cell row because there are 2 columns. Okay. All right, and that makes sense. And then what? Can we put text directly into a table cell? The answer is no. Okay, why? Well, we can't. It has to be inside of an FO block. Because type, it generally speaking, goes inside of an FO block. Okay, so let's put an FO block. FO block. And inside of the other table cell, we're going to have an FO block. FO block. Okay, that's good. Now, we want to make alignment in the cells, okay? In the left cell, we want the name of the document. In the right cell, we want the page number. And we want the left one aligned to the left, or start, as we call it. And then, now, that's a default, but I'd like to be explicit about it. And we'd like the right one aligned to the right or end, okay? And that's not the default. So where do we put the alignment of where we want things to fall within the cell? In the FO block. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we say text align. If I could spell, text align equal start. And we use start and end because we have support for bidirectional printing. Okay, and now we have text align for the second one. Text align equals end, because we want the page number on the right side and we would like it to be all the way over. Okay, that's good. Okay, so what do we want as the content on the left side? Well, I want the same expression that I have for the title of the whole document. And I'm not going to be shy. I'm just going to copy the text that I'm using for that. Okay. So I'm just going to plunk it right in here. And I don't like, well, it does go onto 2 lines, but that's kind of okay the way it goes onto 2 lines because it fits well. Now, what do we want in the second cell, the right side? Well, we want the page number. Well, there's an expression for that, and it's called FO page number. So we just say FO page number. Okay, and it's an empty element. So that's just going to insert the number of the page. Now, I just want to point out here, guys, that I realize that this is not static in the ultimate sense of static, okay? But it's more static than the content that's flowing through it, okay? So yes, we are changing the page number more often than just this one time. So it's not truly as static as completely static, but it's much more static than the rest of the content. And that's why FO static content is a semi-reasonable name. I don't know what they would have called it otherwise. Okay? And this is the whole thing that we're looking for right here. Okay, so when we generate the footer, we're putting out the FO static content. Within that, there's an FO block that controls the typography. Within that, there's an FO table. Right in the beginning of the table, we control the width of the columns. Then there's the table body, which has inside of it 1 table row, which has inside of it 2 table cells. The type in each of the blocks is contained in the table cells is contained in an FO block, and it has to be. You can't plunk the type right into the cell. Okay, and we're going to align the text in each of the cells. And you might think, well, couldn't I just put the text alignment up on the table column, which is the thing that I believe you can do in HTML tables? And the answer is, I tried it and it doesn't work. Okay, so I put it on the individual table, the FO blocks. So let's give this a try and see what it looks like. Okay, so we save that. We're going to go back to the XML document. We're going to transform. And what do we have? Well, I'm hoping we're going to have our footer. There it is. So it's in italic type. It's a little bit smaller. I think we put it into 9 point. We could have expressed it as a percentage too. And over on the left side, we have the title of the document. And it's aligned left, And on the right side, we have the page number, and it's aligned right. And let's just go down to page 2. And it says page 2 and page 3. Even after all the content's exhausted, it still remembers to come down and give us our footer. So that's it. That's what we're going to do. Now, what would be my next thing that I would do? Well, probably the next thing that I would do would be, if I was going to print this double-sided, I would come up with 2 pages, one which had the page number on the right, and one had the page number on the left. And just to give you some hints about where to look for that, you would look for that by going and back here, when we had our layout master set, instead of laying out one page, my page, we would lay out a first page and a second page. We would have a page sequence. So we would use FO page sequence to, and we'd have a sequence in the master set, and we would have more than one page. Okay? And then we would have more than one footer. We'd have a left footer and a right footer. Okay? And then when we went to generate the footers, we would have to generate a left footer, and so we'd have to have some code for that, and we'd have to generate a right footer, so we'd have to have some code for that, and then we would just get to flowing the things. Okay, so having two kinds of pages, left and right, you can find a lot of examples of that. It's a matter of setting up a multi-page sequence that has a left page and a right page, or a right page and a left page. It's probably more typical. And then we just have to generate the 2 footers, or if we're putting the page number into the header, we have to generate the 2 headers, and then we just start flowing the normal content in. So a little more complex than what we're doing. There's a lot of examples around, but it's not that hard to do. What would be the next thing that I would add after that? Well, I would add maybe the front matter of the book, and the back matter of the book. Okay. And again, we might have different page types. And then what we would have is we'd have more page sequences and more flows. Okay, so we would do one, and then we do the next, and we do the next. Okay, and are there a lot of examples of that around? Yeah, there are tons of examples of that around. You can probably find some good examples in the RenderX tutorial and things that it points to. Okay, in fact, in the RenderX examples, I think the example that is the XML specification, which is one that I showed in one of the lectures. I think that it's got several kinds of flows. It's got front matter, it's got the normal pages, and it's got the back matter. And then within the normal pages, it has a left and a right. So that'd be a great place to go for an example of that. And here you are. You're starting to be an XSL-FO publisher. So I'm going to leave you to your own devices, because your assignment's going to be to create the same kind of capability for your other document. And I think you'll find that a lot of fun, so long as you follow the formula we have here. And so until next time, I'm going to say bye. Bye-bye.